Hey guys, Foxdrop here, the video on the new AP jungle enchantment, Runeglaive. When Runeglaive was first announced, I made a Facebook post giving my thoughts, and this video is going to mostly be an adaptation of that post. So if you want to keep up to date with me, you should definitely go and like me on Facebook. The link of that is always in the description. You'll also have to forgive me if the on-screen clips are not that interesting. I did want to get this video out while it was still topical. So today I want to give you my preliminary thoughts, that's always a hard word for me to say, on this item, but do bear in mind this is just my opinion, and this item is fairly new. Firstly, we should take a look at what this item actually is and what role it wants to fill. So if you take a look at it, it is a sheen effect which does a little bit of AoE, but also very much like a Lichbane in the fact that it scales from AP. That's combined with the fact that it has replaced the Mage's enchant, give you a very clear picture that this is the AP jungler's new enchantment. Now, sheen effects in general can be quite universal. After all, every champion has abilities and every champion has basic attacks. However, this is not like a Triforce which can be used on a lot of champions. This is much more like a Lichbane, and in theory should only be bought on champions that are going to be buying a lot of ability power. Now that we've taken a look at what the item actually is and the role it serves, we should take a look at its purpose. Why was it brought into the game, and how is it going to improve the lives of AP junglers? The best way to see what Riot had in mind by introducing this Runeglaive item is to compare it to the Mages. After all, that is the item that it has replaced and improved upon. Now, there are three significant things to mention about this, the first of which is to give these AP junglers more early game damage, and more specifically to help them with their clears thanks to that sheen effect. In addition to that, it also helps with their AoE and also alleviates some of their mana issues. Those three things I just mentioned are all weak spots of AP junglers, and if you want to make AP junglers stronger, are all things you should be taking a look at. So, in theory, this item does make a lot of sense. In practice, however, I'm not entirely convinced that this new Runeglaive item really hits the mark, and let me tell you why. Firstly, we have to look at what champions will really want a sheen or Lichbane item in their build. Remember, we should only really be considering junglers that will want to be stacking AP in order to get the most use out of that AP scaling sheen effect. You could argue right here that it's not fair we only judge the sheen or Lichbane junglers and we should include all of the AP junglers, because at the end of the day, this Runeglaive item will help every single AP jungler clear the jungle, and you would be right if you were to argue that. However, do you really want to be investing all that time and all that gold into an item that is suboptimal for your build just so you can clear through the jungle? Not really. If I were to make an extensive list for junglers that fit that sheen and Lichbane criteria, I would say Akali, Cho'Gath, Diana, Echo, Elise, Evelynn, Fizz, Gragas, Kayle, Lulu, Nidalee, Poppy, and Taric. Now, I actually think that's a very generous list, all things considered, and we can actually trim it down even further here. So let's remove the champions who, despite being able to buy this item and make it work if they were going full AP, would arguably be better junglers with a different jungle item in almost all cases. We'd have Cho'Gath, Gragas, and Taric, who are all better with Cinderhulk, arguably Evelynn with Warrior, Elise with Cinderhulk as well, Kayle with Devourer, and Poppy with the Warrior enchantment, or quite simply skipping a jungle enchantment. Now, don't forget that in examples where a champion can use this Runeglaive enchantment, if it can also use the Cinderhulk, that will almost always be a better choice, mostly due to the way the jungle role favours tanks, especially in this current meta. Now, despite mentioning Evelynn, Elise, Kayle, and Poppy in that previous list of champions that would be better off with a different jungle enchantment, I also want to put a little bit of a footnote here, because these champions have such good synergies with sheen effects that it has to be at least considered a bit of a viable choice, even if in theory these aren't really champions that want to be stacking AP, or they would be better with a different item. But if we don't count those four champions, that only leaves us with Akali, Diana, Echo, Fizz, Lulu, and Nidalee as champions who, so far, Runeglaive looks like it would be a very good item on. At this point, let's remind ourselves of the purpose of this Runeglaive item: to have more reliable clears and damage early, to have better AoE upsides, and to have better mana remedies. If we come back to the list of champions we have currently, do any of these junglers really struggle with that stuff? If we exclude Akali and Lulu, who probably shouldn't be on any jungle list outside of Mobafire, Diana and Nidalee are actually some some of the fastest clearers in the game. In addition, they don't really struggle with mana either, provided they don't spam their abilities all day. And because these junglers were already very capable in the past, you don't really feel any kind of significant improvement in power with this new Runeglaive item over a Magus. So that only really leaves us with Echo and Fizz for champions who will see a lot of love. We can also kind of conclude here that this Runeglaive edition doesn't really fix anything. The champions that will be buying it could already get by, they're already capable junglers. It just makes those able to compete more competitive. Right here is a really important distinction I want to make, because in theory that is not a bad thing whatsoever. If it's a niche item and it improves a small amount of champions, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. The problem comes with the fact that this Runeglaive has replaced Magus and is the only option for every single AP jungler. The issues that Runeglaive has set out to fix are definite problems for a lot of champions, but not every single champion will want to be buying that Sheen Lichbane effect. Some examples would be Annie, Brand, Cassiopeia, Fiddlesticks, Galio, Heimerdinger, Karma, Karthus, Cassandra, Mazahar, Morgana, Orianna, Soraka, Zyra, and Lulu. If there was an item that fixes the problems that Runeglaive fixes but wasn't packaged in with the Sheen effect, then all of the champions that I just mentioned would be jumping for joy. I want to end by saying that whereas Runeglaive is an item that really should only be bought on champions who are going to be stacking a lot of AP, it is entirely possible that it becomes very strong on champions who get a lot of use out of Sheen effects alone. And if that is the case, it does beg the question, and this is the last time I'm going to say it, and I want to put a big emphasis on this: why is it replacing Magus? Why is it not its own standalone enchantment? And as odd as it may sound, considering what I've been saying in this video, I don't even really think that Magus is that good of an item by itself. I just think that it's weird to replace a universal item with what seems to be a very niche one. But at any rate, that's all I want to say on this topic for now. I'm pretty sure I've covered everything. If not, then I'll make any amendments in the comments. Don't forget to let me know what you think about this new item in the comments below. I'll make sure to be reading those. If you liked the video, then feel free to give it a thumbs up. You can subscribe to me for more educational league content with a bit of entertaining stuff on the side as well. You can find me on Facebook, on Twitter, and catch me streaming on Twitch too. All of those links are in the description, guys, but most importantly, as always, have a wonderful day, and I will see you in my next video.